The fluorescent lights of Meridian Financial Tower hummed their familiar monotone as Catherine Hayes stood in the executive restroom on the 42nd floor, staring at her reflection in a way she had not done in years. At 37, she had everything the world told her to want. Corner office, seven-figure salary, a penthouse in downtown Chicago with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Her name on the door of one of the Midwest's most profitable investment firms. But the woman in the mirror looked hollow. Catherine reached for the navy blue janitor's uniform folded on the marble countertop. The fabric was coarse, nothing like the Italian she usually wore. She had ordered it 3 days ago, 2 sizes too large to obscure her frame, along with a name tag that read Maria in faded letters. The uniform had arrived in plain packaging, no return address, as though even the delivery service understood this was something to be hidden. She had been CEO of Meridian Financial for 4 years. 4 years of quarterly reports that always exceeded projections. 4 years of board meetings where her recommendations were implemented without question. 4 years of rising stock prices and industry awards, and her photograph in business magazines with headlines that praised her ruthless efficiency. And in those 4 years, Catherine had not spoken to a single person who cleaned her office. Not because she was cruel. She told herself it was because she was busy. Because time was money and conversations were investments and janitors did not generate returns. But 3 weeks ago, her assistant had accidentally left a memo on her desk. A complaint from the janitorial supervisor about equipment failures, understaffing, and workers putting in 16-hour shifts just to keep the building presentable. Catherine had read it twice. Then she had done what she always did when faced with operational inefficiency. She scheduled an audit. Except this audit would be different. She was going undercover. Her chief operating officer, Gerald Brennan, had laughed when she first mentioned the idea. They were having lunch at the Capitol Grill, discussing third-quarter projections over seared tuna and $30 wine. "You want to what?" Gerald had said, his fork suspended midair. "Work as a janitor for 1 week," Catherine repeated. "Observe the operational gaps firsthand. See where the inefficiencies actually exist." Gerald set down his fork with the careful precision of someone trying not to insult his boss. "Catherine, we have consultants for that. People with clipboards and data analytics software. Consultants see what we show them," Catherine said. "I want to see what we hide." Gerald had shaken his head, but agreed to arrange it. Only he and the head of building operations knew. Everyone else would believe Maria was simply a new hire, filling in during the overnight shift. Now, standing in a restroom with the uniform in her hands, Catherine wondered if this was the most foolish decision of her career, or the first honest one in years. She changed quickly, tucking her auburn hair beneath a worn baseball cap. The uniform hung loose on her shoulders. She removed her wedding ring. The marriage had ended 2 years ago, but she still wore it out of habit and slipped it into her purse. Then she studied her reflection one final time. The woman staring back looked tired, invisible, exactly like someone the old Catherine would never notice. Perfect. The overnight shift began at 11 p.m. Catherine arrived at the employee entrance on the loading dock, where fluorescent lights flickered above steel doors that smelled of grease and exhaust. A group of workers clustered near the time clock, speaking in low voices. Spanish, Polish, something Catherine could not identify. No one looked at her. She clocked in using the badge Gerald had prepared. The system beeped. Maria Delgado. Employee number 7429. A woman in her 50s approached, her supervisor badge reading Rita Alvarez. She looked Catherine up and down with the weariness of someone who had trained too many temporary workers who quit after their first night. "You Maria?" "Yes, ma'am." Rita's expression softened slightly at the respectful address. "You ever done this before?" "No, ma'am, but I'm a fast learner." Rita sighed. "You will need to be. We're down 3 people this week. You will be covering floors 38 through 42. Restrooms, hallways, offices. Trash collection, dusting, vacuuming. For hours for 5 floors. Think you can manage?" Catherine did the math. 48 minutes per floor. "I will do my best." Rita handed her a rolling cart loaded with supplies. Spray bottles, rags, trash bags, a vacuum cleaner with duct tape holding one wheel in place. Supply closet is on floor 40. You need anything, you call me. Do not bother the tenants. Do not touch anything on their desks except the trash. And do not use the elevators during business hours. Understood, understood. Rita walked away without another word. Catherine gripped the cart handle and pushed toward the service elevator. The wheels squeaked. One of them wobbled badly enough that she had to compensate with extra force just to keep the cart moving straight. No wonder the memo mentioned equipment failures. The service elevator smelled like disinfectant and something sour she could not identify. Catherine rode it to the 38th floor, alone with her cart and the hum of the ancient machinery. When the doors opened, the hallway was dark except for emergency lighting that cast everything in shades of gray. She began with the restrooms. The work was harder than she expected. The chemicals burned her hands within the first hour. Her back ached from bending to scrub toilets. The vacuum cleaner kept stalling, forcing her to stop and restart it every few minutes. By the time she finished the 38th floor, 90 minutes had passed. She was already behind schedule. Catherine pushed the cart toward the 39th floor, sweat dampening the collar of her uniform. She had not sweated from physical labor in years, maybe decades. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from. I love hearing from you. It was on the 40th floor, just past 2 in the morning, that she met him. Catherine was emptying trash cans in the executive corridor when she heard voices. Male voices, low and tense. She froze, her hand still gripping a half-full trash bag. You think you are better than the rest of us, do not you, Cole? The voice belonged to someone she recognized. Martin Cross, senior manager in the compliance department. She had never liked him. Too smooth, too quick to take credit for other people's work. I did not say that. The second voice was quieter, calmer. I just said I'm not interested in your scheme. Scheme? Cross laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm offering you a way to make an extra $500 a week. For doing nothing. Just look the other way when I adjust some numbers in the payroll system. That is all. Catherine's breath caught. Payroll fraud. She leaned closer to the corner, staying out of sight. That is theft, the second man said. His voice was steady, but Catherine could hear the tension beneath it. And I have a daughter who depends on me. I am not risking my job for $500. Your daughter? Cross's tone shifted, turning cruel. The one you bring to the break room after school because you cannot afford childcare? The one everyone pretends not to notice, even though it is against company policy? Silence. That is what I thought, Cross continued. You are barely hanging on, Cole. You work doubles to cover the bills. You eat lunch from a paper bag because the cafeteria is too expensive, and you're going to lecture me about right and wrong. Catherine heard footsteps. Someone walking away. You will regret this, Cross called after him. You cannot afford to make enemies here. More footsteps. Then silence. Catherine stood in the shadows, her heart pounding. She should reveal herself. Confront Cross immediately. Fire him before the night was over. But something stopped her. She wanted to know who the second man was. The one who had refused. She found him 20 minutes later on the 42nd floor. He was in the break room, sitting at a small table with a girl who looked about 7 years old. The girl was drawing on the back of what looked like used printer paper, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. The man was tall, maybe 6 feet, with dark hair that needed a cut and shoulders that carried the kind of tension that came from working too hard for too long. His janitorial uniform was clean but worn, the name tag reading Ryan Cole. He was helping his daughter with what appeared to be math homework, pointing to numbers on a worksheet and speaking in a low, patient voice. Catherine hesitated in the doorway. She should leave. She was not supposed to interact with other employees beyond what was necessary. But she found herself walking into the break room anyway. Ryan looked up. His eyes were brown, tired but kind. He straightened slightly, as if preparing to apologize for his daughter's presence. Evening, Catherine said softly. She gestured toward the coffee pot. Is that fresh? Ryan relaxed fractionally. Made it about an hour ago. Should still be decent. Catherine poured herself a cup. The coffee was terrible, bitter, and burnt, but she drank it anyway. She glanced at the girl, who had stopped drawing to stare at her with open curiosity. "What is your name?" Catherine asked. "Emma," the girl said. She held up her drawing. "I'm making a picture of my dad. See? That is him holding a mop. He is really good at cleaning." Catherine smiled despite herself. "I can see that. You are a very talented artist." Emma beamed. Ryan's expression softened as he looked at his daughter, and Catherine saw something in his face that made her chest tighten. Love. Uncomplicated and absolute. "You're new," Ryan said. It was not a question. "First night," Catherine admitted. "I am Maria." Ryan. He did not offer his hand, but he nodded. "Fair warning, the vacuum on the west wing is broken. The one on the cart. You will need to requisition a new one from Rita, but she probably will not have one until next week." "Oh." Catherine looked down at her coffee. "That explains why it keeps stalling." "Yeah." Ryan hesitated, then added, "If you need any help tonight, just let me know. I have been here 3 years. I know where everything is." "Thank you. I appreciate that." Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, I finished the problem. Can you check it?" Ryan turned his attention back to his daughter, and Catherine took that as her cue to leave. But as she pushed her cart back into the hallway, she found herself thinking about the conversation she had overheard. Ryan Cole had refused $500 a week because it was wrong, even though he was struggling. Even though his daughter needed childcare he could not afford. How many people in this building would have made the same choice? The rest of the shift passed in a blur of aching muscles and chemical fumes. By the time Catherine finished the 42nd floor, the sky outside the windows was beginning to lighten. She returned her car to the supply closet and clocked out at 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes past the end of her shift. Rita was waiting near the time clock, her arms crossed. "You are slow," she said bluntly, "but you finished everything. That is more than the last 3 new hires managed on their first night." Catherine nodded, too exhausted to speak. "Same time tomorrow," Rita said. "Do not be late." Catherine drove home in silence, still wearing the uniform because she was too tired to change. Her penthouse felt enormous and cold when she stepped inside. She stood in the entryway, looking at the marble floors and designer furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows, and felt nothing. She showered for 20 minutes, scrubbing the chemical smell from her skin. Then she collapsed in a bed and fell asleep, still thinking about a man who had refused easy money because it was the right thing to do, and about a little girl who drew pictures of her father holding a mop. The second night, Catherine arrived early. She clocked in at 10:50 and found Ryan already loading his cart near the supply closet. "Evening," she said. He looked up, surprised. "You came back. Most people quit after the first night. I do not quit easily." Ryan almost smiled. "Good. You will need that here." He gestured toward her cart. "The vacuum on yours is the same broken one. I swapped it out with one from storage. Should work better." Catherine looked at the vacuum. It was older but functional, no duct tape holding it together. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did." Ryan pushed his cart toward the elevator. "We look out for each other here. That is how we survive." Catherine wanted to ask him about what she had overheard, about Martin Cross and the payroll fraud. But she could not. Not yet. Not without revealing who she really was. So instead, she said, "Thank you." Ryan nodded and disappeared into the elevator. Catherine worked through the 38th and 39th floors with the same methodical efficiency she brought to everything. But her mind was not on the work. It was on Ryan Cole and the choice he had made. And on Martin Cross, who was still walking the halls of this building as though he owned it. She needed evidence. Real evidence, not just an overheard conversation. On her break, Catherine returned to the executive floor. Most offices were dark, but a few still had lights on. Workaholics burning midnight oil. She moved past them quietly, pushing her cart, invisible. Martin Cross's office was on the 41st floor. Catherine had approved his promotion herself 2 years ago. He was smart, ambitious, exactly the kind of employee Meridian Financial valued. His door was locked, but the cleaning staff had master keys. Catherine hesitated for only a moment before using hers. The office was neat. Too neat. Everything precisely arranged, as though Cross wanted to project control even in his absence. Catherine moved to his desk and opened the drawers carefully. Files, pens, A framed photograph of Cross with people who might have been his family, all of them smiling too widely. The bottom drawer was locked. Catherine pulled a paperclip from the desk and bent into shape. She had learned to pick simple locks in college, a skill she had not used in years. The mechanism clicked after 30 seconds. Inside the drawer was a laptop. Personal, not company issued. And beneath it, a folder filled with printouts, payroll records, names, salary adjustments, bonuses that had been issued and then quietly retracted, the money redirected to an account Catherine did not recognize. Her hands trembled as she photographed the documents with her phone. This was not just petty theft. This was a systematic fraud, potentially involving hundreds of thousands of dollars. She was so focused on the documents that she did not hear the footsteps in the hallway until it was too late. The office door opened. Martin Cross stood in the doorway, his expression shifting from surprise to suspicion in the span of a heartbeat. "What are you doing in my office?" Catherine's mind raced. She was still holding the folder, still crouched beside the open drawer. There was no way to explain this that would not end badly. She began. "She is looking for cleaning supplies," a voice said from behind Cross. Ryan Cole stepped into view, his expression calm, but his posture tense. He was holding a spray bottle and a rag, as though he had been cleaning nearby. Cross turned toward him. "What?" "Maria is new," Ryan continued, his voice steady. "She asked me where we keep the glass cleaner. I told her to check her office supply cabinet, because sometimes people store extras. I should have been more specific. My fault." Catherine forced herself to stand slowly, closing the drawer with her foot. "I apologize, sir. I did not mean to intrude. I was just looking for supplies." Cross's eyes narrowed. He looked between them, clearly unconvinced. But Ryan had given him an out, a plausible explanation that did not involve confrontation. "Supply closet is on the 40th floor," Cross said coldly. "Not in my office. And in the future, do not enter without permission." "Yes, sir," Catherine said. She moved toward the door, gripping the spray bottle Ryan had handed her. Ryan followed her out. They walked in silence until they reached the stairwell, far enough from Cross's office that they could not be overheard. "Thank you," Catherine said quietly. "You did not have to do that." Ryan looked at her for a long moment. "Yes, I did. He was going to fire you on the spot. I have seen him do it to others. You knew I was not looking for cleaning supplies. I knew you were in trouble." Ryan's expression was unreadable. "What you were actually doing in there is your business. But you should be more careful. Cross is not someone you want to make an enemy of." Catherine thought about the documents on her phone, the evidence of fraud, the systematic theft from employees who trusted the company to pay them fairly. "What if I told you," she said slowly, "that Cross is stealing from people who work here? Would that change your opinion?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "I would say I already know. I have suspected it for months. But suspicion is not proof. And people like me do not get listened to when we make accusations about people like him." "People like you?" "Janitors," Ryan said simply. "We are invisible. Our word does not matter." Catherine looked at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes and the quiet dignity in the way he stood. She thought about the conversation she had overheard, about Ryan refusing easy money because it was wrong. She made a decision. "What if I could prove it?" she asked. "What if I had evidence that could get him fired and arrested?" Ryan studied her. "Who are you really, Maria?" Catherine hesitated. She had maintained the disguise for 2 nights. She could maintain it longer. But something about Ryan Cole made her want to tell the truth. "My name is not Maria," she said quietly. "It is Catherine Hayes, and I am the CEO of this company." Ryan took a step back, his expression shifting from surprise to something that looked almost like betrayal. "You are joking." "I am not. You have been pretending to be a janitor?" "Yes." "Why?" The question came out sharp, almost angry. "Because I wanted to see what I have been ignoring," Catherine said. "And I found more than I expected." Ryan shook his head slowly. "So this is what? Some kind of social experiment? You dress up as one of us for a few nights, feel good about yourself, then go back to your corner office?" "No." Catherine's voice was firm. "This is me realizing I have been running a company where good people like you are invisible and people like Martin Cross thrive. And I'm trying to fix it." Ryan was silent for a long time. Then he said, very quietly. Emma asked me tonight why the lady from last night was so nice to her. She said most people do not even look at her when I bring her here. She wanted to know if you would be back. Catherine felt something crack inside her chest. I will be back, she said, every night this week. And when I am done, Martin Cross will not work here anymore. Ryan met her eyes. You promise? I promise. He nodded once. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Catherine alone in the stairwell with the weight of her own words settling onto her shoulders like a physical thing. She had made a promise to a man who had every reason not to trust her. Now, she had to keep it. Catherine did not sleep that night. She sat in her penthouse with her laptop open, the photographs from Martin Cross's office displayed across 3 monitors. The evidence was damning, but not complete. She needed more. Transaction records, bank statements, a pattern so clear that even Cross's expensive lawyers could not argue it away. But as she worked through the pre-dawn hours, her mind kept drifting back to the stairwell, to Ryan's face when she revealed her identity. The way his expression had shifted from surprise to something darker. Betrayal. Distrust. She had spent 2 nights pretending to be someone she was not. To Ryan, that made her no different from Martin Cross. Just another person in power playing games with people's lives. Catherine closed her laptop at 6 a.m. and stood at her window, watching the sun rise over Lake Michigan. The water was gray and choppy, reflecting the November sky. She thought about Emma, drawing pictures of her father with a mop. She thought about Ryan, refusing $500 a week because it was the right thing to do, even though his daughter needed childcare he could not afford. She thought about the woman in the mirror, the one who had worn the janitor's uniform and felt invisible for the first time in her life. That woman had learned something the CEO had forgotten, that being seen mattered, that dignity was not a luxury, that the people who kept this building running deserved more than to be treated as part of the machinery. Catherine picked up her phone and sent a text to Gerald Brennan. I need you to freeze Martin Cross's access to all payroll systems immediately. Do not alert him. And set up a meeting with the head of HR and our legal team for 8 a.m. This is urgent. Gerald's response came 2 minutes later. What's going on? Catherine stared at the message, then typed her reply. I am fixing something I should have noticed years ago. At 7:55 that evening, Catherine returned to Meridian Financial. She wore the uniform again, the name tag that read Maria, but this time she felt different wearing it. Not like she was pretending, like she was honoring something she had not understood before. Rita looked surprised when Catherine clocked in. You are early again, the supervisor said, and you came back for a 3rd night. I did not think you would. Why not? Catherine asked. Rita shrugged. Most people who look like you, they try this kind of work and realize it is harder than they thought. They quit. They go back to whatever easier life they had before. Catherine met Rita's eyes. I do not quit easily. Rita's expression softened slightly. I am starting to believe that. She handed Catherine her cart. Same floors. But tonight, you'll have help. Ryan Cole asked to work your section with you. Said you're still learning and could use an extra set of hands. Catherine's chest tightened. He did. Surprised me too, Rita said. Ryan usually works alone. He is good at his job, but he does not talk much. Keeps to himself. She paused. Whatever you did to earn his trust, hold on to it. Ryan Cole is the kind of person who makes this place bearable. Catherine nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She found Ryan on the 40th floor, already working through the executive corridor. He looked up when she approached, his expression carefully neutral. Evening, he said. Evening. Catherine parked her cart beside his. Rita said you asked to work with me tonight. I did. Ryan sprayed down a conference table, wiping it clean with efficient movements. I figured if you're really the CEO and you're really trying to fix things, you should see what it is actually like to do this job properly. I would appreciate that. Ryan gestured toward the offices lining the hallway. Most nights, we have about 4 hours to cover 5 floors. That is 48 minutes per floor if everything goes perfectly. But things never go perfectly. Equipment breaks. Supplies run out. Someone spills coffee in a conference room right before we get there and does not bother to clean it up. Catherine listened, pushing her cart beside him as they moved from office to office. "The vacuum you gave me," she said. "The one from storage. Where did you find it?" "I did not find it. I bought it." Ryan's voice was matter-of-fact. 3 months ago, the company one broke, and Rita said there was no budget for a replacement. So I went to a pawn shop and got a used one for $40. Catherine stopped walking. "You spent $40 of your own money on a vacuum cleaner for work. It was cheaper than trying to do 5 floors without one." Ryan kept moving, emptying trash cans with practiced efficiency. "A lot of us do that. Bring our own supplies when the company ones run out. Paper towels, trash bags, cleaning solution. We buy them at the dollar store and nobody notices." "I should have noticed," Catherine said quietly. Ryan glanced at her. "You're noticing now. That is more than most people in this building have ever done." They worked in silence for several minutes. Catherine watched the way Ryan moved, the economy of motion that came from doing the same tasks thousands of times. He never wasted a movement, never checked his phone, just worked with a focus that reminded her of the way surgeons operated. Precise and careful and present. "Can I ask you something?" Catherine said as they finished the 40th floor. "You are the CEO. You can ask me anything. Why did you defend me last night? In the stairwell. You could have let Cross catch me. It would have been simpler." Ryan was quiet for a long time. They rode the elevator to the 41st floor, the ancient machinery humming around them. When the doors opened, he finally spoke. 6 months ago, Emma got sick. Really sick. She had pneumonia, and I did not know it, because I thought it was just a cold. By the time I took her to the hospital, her lungs were full of fluid. They said if I had waited one more day, she might not have made it. Catherine felt her throat tighten. "I missed 3 days of work," Ryan continued. "When I came back, Cross called me into his office. He said the company absence policy only allowed 2 sick days without advance notice. He was going to write me up, put a formal reprimand in my file. What did you do?" I begged. Ryan's voice was flat, without emotion. "I told him my daughter almost died. I showed him the hospital discharge papers. And he laughed. He said life was full of hard choices, and maybe I should think about whether I could really afford to be a single parent." Catherine stopped walking. "He said that, word for word." Ryan looked at her. "So when I saw you in his office last night, going through his things, I knew you were looking for something. And I knew if Cross caught you, he would destroy you the same way he tries to destroy everyone who challenges him. I could not let that happen, even though you did not trust me. Especially because I did not trust you," Ryan said. "If you're really trying to fix this place, you need to succeed. Because if you fail, things will only get worse for the rest of us." They continued working, moving through the executive offices with the silent efficiency of people who had done this too many times to count. Catherine found herself watching Ryan more than the work. The way he paused to straighten picture frames that had been knocked askew. The way he replaced burned-out light bulbs without being asked. The way he treated every space as though it mattered, even though the people who worked in those spaces would never know his name. Around 1 a.m., they took their break in the same room where Catherine had met Emma 2 nights before. Ryan pulled out a thermos of coffee and poured 2 cups without asking if she wanted any. "Thank you," Catherine said, accepting the cup. "It is better than the break room coffee," Ryan said. "I'll make it at home." They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Catherine asked the question she had been holding back all night. "Where is Emma tonight?" Ryan's expression softened the way it always did when someone mentioned his daughter. "With Mrs. Chun. She lives in our building. She watches Emma when I work nights, and I fix things in her apartment when they break. We have an arrangement. That is kind of her. Mrs. Chun is 82 and lives on Social Security," Ryan said. "She needs help. Emma needs watching. It works." He paused. "I know what you were thinking, that I should be able to afford proper childcare, that I should have a better situation for my daughter. I was not thinking that," Catherine said honestly. "I was thinking that Emma is lucky to have you." Ryan looked at her, surprise flickering across his face. "You mean that?" "I do." Catherine wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Can I tell you something? When I was growing up, my father was a lot like Martin Cross. He had power, and he used it to make people feel small. He thought success meant standing on top of other people." She paused. "I spent years trying to be nothing like him. And somehow, without realizing it, I became exactly what I was trying to avoid. You are here now, Ryan said quietly. That counts for something. Does it? Catherine met his eyes. I have been CEO for 4 years. 4 years of ignoring people like you. Of treating this building like a machine instead of a place where human beings work. How many Martin Crosses did I promote? How many good people did I overlook? Ryan was silent for a moment. Then he said, my wife used to tell me something. She said the only difference between a mistake and a choice is what you do next. Catherine felt her breath catch. Your wife? She passed away, Ryan said simply. 3 years ago. Cancer. That is why I am here. Why I work nights. The medical bills were more than I could ever pay off in a lifetime, but I'm trying anyway. I am so sorry. Ryan shook his head. Do not be sorry. Just be better. That is what Sarah would have said. She did not believe in apologies. She believed in action. Catherine thought about her ex-husband, about the marriage that had fallen apart, because they had both chosen work over everything else. She thought about the empty penthouse waiting for her after every shift. She thought about the woman in the mirror who had everything and felt nothing. Your wife was wise, Catherine said. She was. Ryan stood, collecting their empty cups. Come on, we still have 2 floors to finish. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Over the next 3 nights, Catherine and Ryan fell into a rhythm. They worked side by side, moving through the floors with increasing efficiency. Ryan taught her things she had never considered. How to clean windows without leaving streaks. How to buff floors so they reflected light properly. How to identify which offices needed extra attention because their occupants worked late and generated more mess. But more than the technical skills, Catherine learned about the invisible world that existed in her building. She learned that the vending machine on the 39th floor had been broken for 2 months, and the night shift workers had been bringing their own snacks because nobody had bothered to call for repairs. She learned that the women's restroom on the 41st floor had a leaking pipe that soaked through the ceiling tiles below, and maintenance had been promising to fix it for 6 weeks. She learned that Rita Alvarez had been working at Meridian Financial for 17 years and had never received a promotion, despite managing a team of 12 people with the efficiency of a military operation. She learned that the supply budget had been cut by 30% over the past 2 years, forcing workers to bring their own materials or go without. And she learned that Ryan Cole was exactly the kind of person she had been overlooking her entire career. Competent, honest, quietly exceptional in ways that would never appear on a resume or impress a board of directors. On the 5th night, Catherine arrived to find Emma in the break room again. Mrs. Chun had fallen and sprained her ankle, Ryan explained. He had nowhere else to take his daughter. I am sorry, he said. I know it is against policy. It is fine, Catherine said. And then, making a decision that felt both terrifying and right, she added, actually, I could use Emma's help tonight. Would that be okay? Ryan looked uncertain. Help with what? I need someone to test the break room furniture. Make sure the chairs are comfortable. The tables are the right height. That kind of thing. Catherine looked at Emma. Do you think you could do that? Emma's eyes went wide. Really? Really? It is very important work. I need an expert opinion. Emma looked at her father, who nodded slowly. Okay, but you have to be good and stay in this room. And finish your homework first. I will. Emma pulled out her backpack with the kind of enthusiasm that made Catherine's chest ache. For the next 2 hours, Catherine and Ryan worked through the floors. But every 30 minutes, Catherine found an excuse to check on Emma, to bring her a snack from the vending machine, to look at her drawings, to sit for 5 minutes and listen to Emma explain the intricate plot of the book she was reading. Ryan noticed. Of course he noticed. But he said nothing until their break, when they sat together in the quiet room, while Emma slept on a makeshift bed of coats Ryan had arranged in the corner. You do not have to do this, Ryan said quietly. Do what? Pretend to care about my daughter to prove you are a good person. Catherine felt the words like a physical blow. She set down her coffee and turned to face him fully. I'm not pretending, she said. I do care. And maybe that makes me a hypocrite because I have ignored hundreds of people in this building for years. But Emma is 7 years old, and she draws pictures of her father holding a mop. And she told me tonight that when she grows up, She wants to be a janitor, just like him. Do you know why? Ryan's jaw tightened. Why? Because he helps people. Because he makes things clean and good. Because he is her hero. Catherine's voice cracked slightly. When I was 7, I wanted to be nothing like my father. And Emma wants to be exactly like you. That is not something I can pretend to care about. That is something I will remember for the rest of my life. Ryan was silent for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "Thank you." They sat together in the silence, the only sound Emma's soft breathing from the corner. Catherine thought about her penthouse, about the expensive furniture and designer decorations and perfect city views. She thought about how she had never felt as present in that space as she did right now, sitting in a break room that smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said. "Of course. What happens when this week is over? When you go back to being CEO and I go back to being invisible?" Catherine had been asking herself the same question. She had evidence of Martin Cross's fraud. She had the photographs, the transaction records she had been gathering all week. She could fire him tomorrow, clean up the payroll system, increase the janitorial budget, implement better policies. But policies were not people. Budgets were not relationships. And going back to the 42nd floor meant returning to the same isolation that had driven her to put on the uniform in the first place. "I do not know," Catherine admitted. "I do not know how to be the person I was before and the person I am now at the same time." "Then maybe," Ryan said carefully, "you should stop trying to be the person you were before." Catherine looked at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes and the quiet strength in the way he held himself, at the daughter sleeping in the corner and the thermos of coffee he always shared without being asked. "I think," she said slowly, "you might be right." On the 6th night, everything changed. Catherine arrived at the employee entrance to find security guards blocking the door. Gerald Brennan stood beside them, his expression grim. "Catherine," he said, "we need to talk." Catherine's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Martin Cross filed a formal complaint this morning. He says someone has been breaking into his office. He is demanding an investigation." Gerald lowered his voice. "He has security footage from 3 nights ago. Footage of you in his office. Going through his desk." Catherine's mind raced. She had been careful. She had checked for cameras. But Cross must have had a personal security system she had not seen. "Where is the footage?" she asked. "Cross has it. He is threatening to go to the board if we do not address the situation immediately." Gerald paused. "Catherine, what were you doing in his office?" Before she could answer, Ryan Cole emerged from the loading dock. He took one look at the scene, at Catherine surrounded by security guards, and his expression hardened. "What is going on?" he demanded. "This is a private matter," Gerald said dismissively. "It is not private if you are blocking the employee entrance," Ryan shot back. He looked at Catherine. "Are you okay?" "I am fine," Catherine said, though she was not sure that was true. "She is fine," Gerald agreed. "But you need to leave. This does not concern you. If it concerns her, it concerns me." Ryan stepped closer, positioning himself beside Catherine. "What is she being accused of?" Gerald looked at Ryan as though seeing him for the first time. "Who are you?" "Ryan Cole. I work here. And I was with Maria," he caught himself, "with Catherine, 3 nights ago, when whatever happened supposedly happened." "You were with her," Gerald repeated skeptically. "Yes. We were cleaning the executive offices together. I was showing her how to properly service the conference rooms. I was with her the entire night." Catherine stared at Ryan. He was lying, covering for her, risking his own job to protect hers. Gerald looked between them. "That is convenient." "It is the truth," Ryan said firmly. "And if Martin Cross says otherwise, he is lying. Which, from what I understand, is not exactly out of character for him." Gerald's expression shifted. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean," Ryan said carefully, "that Cross has been stealing from the payroll system for at least 6 months. And if you check the security footage, you will probably find evidence of him doing a lot more than whatever he is accusing Catherine of." The silence that followed was deafening. Gerald stared at Ryan. The security guards shifted uncomfortably, and Catherine felt something crack open in her chest, a mixture of gratitude and fear so intense she could barely breathe. "That is a serious accusation," Gerald said finally. "It is a serious crime," Ryan replied. And I have proof. He did not have proof. Catherine had the proof. But Ryan was offering himself up as a witness, as a shield, as someone willing to take the hit if this went wrong. Catherine found her voice. Gerald, I need to speak with you privately. Now. Gerald hesitated, then nodded. Everyone else, wait here. Catherine pulled him aside, out of earshot of the security guards. She spoke quickly, her voice low and urgent. Ryan is telling the truth. Cross is stealing from the company. I have evidence. Photographs of documents from his office showing systematic payroll fraud. I was going to bring it to you this morning, but Cross moved first. Gerald's eyes widened. You have evidence? On my phone. I can show you right now. Why did you not come to me immediately? Because I needed to be sure, Catherine said. Because I wanted proof that would hold up in court, not just in a board meeting. And because I needed to understand how bad the problem was before I reported it. Gerald ran a hand through his hair. This is a disaster. No, Catherine said firmly. This is an opportunity to do the right thing, to show that this company does not protect people who steal from their colleagues, to prove that we care more about integrity than appearance. Gerald looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. I'm calling legal, and we're going to cross his office right now. Both of us. What about Ryan? What about him? He just put his job on the line to protect me. If this goes wrong, Cross will make sure he is fired. Then, Gerald said, we better make sure this does not go wrong. Martin Cross's office was on the 41st floor, exactly where Catherine had broken into it 6 nights before. Gerald knocked once, then opened the door without waiting for permission. Cross looked up from his desk, his expression shifting from surprise to satisfaction when he saw Catherine. Well, he said, I did not expect you to hand-deliver yourself. That makes this easier. Mr. Cross, Gerald said formally, we are here to discuss the allegations you made this morning. Allegations? Cross laughed. I have video evidence of the CEO breaking into my office. That is not an allegation. That is fact. You also have documents in your desk drawer, Catherine said calmly, showing that you have been stealing from the payroll system for at least 6 months. That is also a fact. Cross's smile faltered. I have no idea what you are talking about. Bottom drawer, Catherine continued. Locked. Inside is a personal laptop and a folder containing altered payroll records. You have been issuing bonuses to yourself and other employees, then retracting them and redirecting the funds to an offshore account. The total amount is approximately $450,000. The color drained from Cross's face. You are lying. Open the drawer, Gerald said. You have no right. Open it, Gerald repeated. Or I will have security do it for you. Cross stood slowly. For a moment, Catherine thought he might refuse. Then he pulled a key from his pocket and unlocked the drawer. The laptop was exactly where Catherine had left it 6 nights ago. So was the folder. Gerald took them both, his expression darkening as he flipped through the documents. Mr. Cross, you are terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building, and we will be contacting the authorities. You cannot do this, Cross said, his voice rising. I have connections. I have lawyers. I will destroy this company. No, Catherine said quietly. You will not, because I have evidence, and I have witnesses, and I have finally learned to see the people you have been hurting. Security arrived within minutes. They escorted Martin Cross from the building while he shouted threats and accusations that echoed down the executive corridor. Catherine watched him go, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just exhaustion. Gerald turned to her when it was over. You should have come to me first. I know, but I'm glad you did not. He paused, because if you had, I probably would have asked you to handle it quietly, to protect the company's reputation. And people like Cross rely on that silence. Catherine nodded. What happens now? Now, Gerald said, we figure out how to make sure this never happens again. Catherine found Ryan in the loading dock, still waiting. Emma was with him now, holding his hand and looking worried. When Catherine appeared, Emma ran toward her. Are you okay? The little girl asked. Daddy said there was trouble. Catherine knelt down to Emma's level. I am okay. Thanks to your dad. Emma beamed. Daddy always helps people. He does, Catherine agreed. She looked up at Ryan. Can we talk? Ryan nodded. He asked Emma to wait by the time clock, then followed Catherine to a quiet corner of the loading dock. You lied for me, Catherine said. You said you were with me that night. I was with you, Ryan said. Maybe not in Cross's office, but I was with you. And I would do it again. Why? Because, Ryan said simply, you were trying. And that matters more than being perfect. Catherine felt tears prick at her eyes. I want to offer you a job. A real job. Not janitorial work. Something in operations. Or compliance. Or anywhere you want to be. Ryan shook his head. I appreciate that. But I do not want a job because you feel guilty. It is not guilt, Catherine said. It is recognition. You are competent and honest, and you see problems before they become crises. That is exactly what this company needs. And what if I like being a janitor? Ryan asked. What if I am good at it and it gives me time with my daughter, and I do not want to change? Catherine stopped. She had assumed, without asking, that Ryan would want to move up, that everyone wanted what she wanted. But Ryan was not everyone. Ryan had chosen this life deliberately, built it around what mattered most to him. Then, Catherine said carefully, I want to make sure this company treats you the way you deserve. Better equipment, better pay, better benefits, childcare assistance, so Emma does not have to wait in break rooms. That, Ryan said, I would accept. They stood together in the dim light of the loading dock. Two people from completely different worlds who had somehow found common ground. Thank you, Catherine said, for everything. Thank you for seeing us, Ryan replied. That is all most people want, just to be seen. Emma called out from the time clock, asking if they were finished talking. Ryan smiled and waved at his daughter. I should go, he said. Mrs. Chun is feeling better, but Emma should be home. Of course. Catherine hesitated. Will I see you tomorrow night? Will you be here? Yes. Then so will I, Ryan said. And he walked away, his daughter's hand in his, leaving Catherine alone with the realization that she did not want the week to end. That for the first time in years, she had found something worth holding on to. And she was terrified of losing it. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Catherine arrived 30 minutes early, carrying a folder thick with evidence and a resignation letter she had written at 4 in the morning when sleep refused to come. She sat in her office, still wearing the executive clothing that felt strange after a week in janitor's uniforms, and stared at the letter. It was simple, direct, the kind of document she would have respected if someone else had written it. Effective immediately, I am resigning as Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Financial. My decision is based on a fundamental misalignment between my values and the requirements of this position. I can no longer lead a company where profit takes precedence over people. Gerald knocked once before entering. He looked at the letter on her desk, and his expression darkened. You are not seriously considering that. I'm not considering it, Catherine said. I have decided. Catherine, you exposed a major fraud. You saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. The board is going to praise you, not fire you. I do not want their praise. Catherine stood and walked to the window. 42 floors below, people moved through the streets like ants, invisible from this height. I spent a week learning what it is like to be invisible in my own building. And I realized that I have been complicit in creating a system that treats human beings as expendable resources. So you fix the system, Gerald said. You do not abandon it. How? Catherine turned to face him. By implementing new policies that look good on paper but change nothing? By attending diversity workshops and forming committees that meet quarterly and accomplish nothing? By using your power to make real changes, Gerald said firmly. Catherine, you have influence. You have authority. If you walk away, someone else will take this position. Someone who might not care about janitors or ethics or any of the things you discovered this week. Catherine thought about Ryan, about Emma drawing pictures of her father, about Rita Alvarez managing a team for 17 years without a promotion, about workers buying their own supplies because the company budget had been cut. What if I do not know how to fix it? She asked quietly. Then you learn, Gerald said, the same way you learned everything else. The boardroom was filled when Catherine entered. 12 faces turned toward her, some curious, some skeptical, all of them powerful. These were people who controlled billions of dollars in assets. People who could make or break careers with a single vote. Catherine took her seat at the head of the table and placed a folder in front of her. The resignation letter remained in her office, still unsigned. "Thank you for coming on short notice," she began. "I called this meeting to discuss several critical issues that have come to light over the past week." Thomas Mercer, the board chairman, leaned forward. "We heard about Martin Cross. Unfortunate situation, but you handled it well. The legal team says we have a solid case." "Martin Cross is not why I called this meeting," Catherine said. "He is a symptom of a much larger problem." The room fell silent. Catherine opened the folder and distributed copies of a report she had compiled over the weekend. Pages of data showing employee turnover rates, budget cuts to support services, complaints that had been filed and ignored, and a detailed breakdown of how much the company spent on executive perks versus how much it allocated to the people who actually kept the building running. "For the past week," Catherine said, "I worked as a janitor on the night shift. I did not tell anyone except Gerald. I wanted to see what we had been ignoring." The silence deepened. Several board members exchanged glances. "That was an extraordinary risk," Mercer said carefully. "If something had gone wrong." "Something had already gone wrong," Catherine interrupted. "We have a 17-year employee managing an entire team who has never been promoted. We have workers buying their own supplies because our budget does not cover basic materials. We have broken equipment that has not been repaired in months. And we have a corporate culture that treats an entire class of employees as invisible." "Those are operational issues," another board member said, "not strategic priorities." "They are both," Catherine replied. "Because when we treat our own employees as expendable, we create an environment where people like Martin Cross thrive, where fraud goes unnoticed because nobody is paying attention to the people who would notice first." She paused, looking around the table. "I am proposing immediate changes. A 20% increase in the janitorial and facilities budget. An audit of all support staff positions to identify promotion opportunities. A review of our childcare and healthcare benefits to ensure they actually meet employee needs. And a restructuring of our management oversight to prevent the kind of systematic theft that Cross was able to commit." "That is going to be expensive," someone said. "It is going to be necessary," Catherine countered. "And if we do not do it voluntarily, we will eventually be forced to do it through lawsuits or regulation or public pressure." Thomas Mercer steepled his fingers. "Catherine, I appreciate your passion, but this board is responsible to shareholders. We cannot justify significant expenditures based on 1 week of undercover work." "Then justify it based on this," Catherine said. She pulled out another document. "Over the past 4 years, our employee turnover in support positions has been 43%. The average cost of replacing an employee is approximately 21% of their annual salary. We're spending more money on constant turnover than we would spend on retention." She let that sink in. "I am not asking you to choose between profit and people," she continued. "I'm asking you to recognize that they are the same thing, that a company is only as strong as the people who work for it, and that we have been hemorrhaging our foundation while congratulating ourselves on our quarterly earnings." The room erupted into discussion, arguments for and against, questions about implementation and cost and liability. Catherine sat through it all, her hands folded on the table, waiting. Finally, Thomas Mercer called for order. "We will take this under advisement," he said, "and vote on the proposals at our next scheduled meeting." "When is that?" Catherine asked. 3 months. Catherine felt something crack inside her. 3 months. 90 days of committees and discussions and revisions while nothing changed. While Ryan continued buying his own supplies and Rita continued managing without recognition and Emma continued waiting in break rooms because her father could not afford proper child care. She stood slowly. "With respect, Mr. Chairman, that is not acceptable. These changes need to happen now. Not in 3 months. Not after more studies and more debates. Now, Catherine, I will make this simple," she said. "Either this board approves the proposals today, or I resign." And I will hold a press conference explaining exactly why I'm leaving and what I discovered during my week working alongside the employees this company has been ignoring." The silence was absolute. "You are issuing an ultimatum," Mercer said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I am stating my terms," Catherine replied. "You can accept them, or you can find a new CEO. But either way, these changes are going to happen." The vote took 2 hours. Catherine waited in her office, staring out at the city below and wondering if she had just destroyed her career. She thought about her father, about the way he had used power to control people. She thought about her ex-husband, about the marriage that had failed because they had both chosen ambition over connection. She thought about Ryan, teaching her how to clean windows without leaving streaks. About Emma, drawing pictures of her hero father. About the way she had felt during that week. Exhausted and invisible and more present than she had been in years. Gerald entered without knocking. His expression was unreadable. "Well?" Catherine asked. 8-4, he said. "You won." Catherine felt her knees weaken. She sat down heavily in her chair. "The proposals passed?" "All of them, with immediate implementation." Gerald sat across from her. Thomas Mercer said, and I quote, "If the CEO is willing to work as a janitor to understand our failures, the least we can do is support her solutions." Catherine started to laugh. Then she started to cry. And she was doing both at once, her face in her hands, the weight of the week finally crashing down on her. Gerald waited until she composed herself. "You know you just committed professional suicide if this does not work, right?" "I know," Catherine said. "But I would rather fail trying to do the right thing than succeed doing the wrong one." "Your wife was right," Gerald said quietly. "You are nothing like your father." Catherine looked up. "You knew Sarah?" "We met once. At a company event years ago. She told me that the most important question anyone could ask was not am I successful, but am I good?" He paused. "I think she would be proud of you today." Catherine nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. "There's one more thing," Gerald said. "Ryan Cole is downstairs. He says he needs to speak with you." Catherine found Ryan in the lobby, still wearing his janitorial uniform. Emma was with him, clutching a piece of paper that looked like another drawing. They both looked nervous. "Ryan," Catherine said, "is everything okay?" "I heard about the board meeting," he said. "About what you did." "How did you hear?" Rita told everyone. She called it the miracle vote. Ryan shifted his weight. "I wanted to thank you. In person. Before you changed your mind." "I'm not going to change my mind." "People in power always change their minds," Ryan said. "That has been my experience." Catherine looked at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes and the protective way he held his daughter's hand, at the uniform he wore with dignity because it represented honest work. "Ryan, I need to tell you something," she said. "This week changed me. Not because I learned how hard janitorial work is, though I did. Not because I discovered fraud, though that mattered. But because I met someone who refused to compromise his integrity, even when it would have been easier. Someone who chose what was right over what was profitable. Someone who showed me what real strength looks like." Ryan was silent. "I'm going to make changes at this company," Catherine continued. "Real changes. But I cannot do it alone. I need people who understand what it is like to be invisible. People who see problems that executives miss. People who care more about doing good work than climbing ladders." "What are you asking?" Ryan said carefully. "I am creating a new position. Employee advocate. Someone who reports directly to me and represents the concerns of every person who works in this building, from janitors to executives. Someone with the authority to investigate complaints, recommend changes, and hold management accountable." Catherine paused. "I want you to take that position." Ryan stared at her. "I am a janitor. You are a father who works 3 jobs to pay medical bills while maintaining his integrity. You're someone who buys equipment with his own money so his coworkers can do their jobs properly. You're someone who stood up to Martin Cross when everyone else was too afraid." Catherine smiled. "You are exactly who I need." "What about my daughter?" "We are implementing on-site childcare within the next month. Emma will be welcome there. Or, if you prefer Mrs. Chin's arrangement, we will compensate you for those hours." Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can I show her my picture now?" Ryan nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. Emma handed Catherine the drawing. It showed 3 figures. A tall man labeled Daddy, a small girl labeled me, and a woman with auburn hair labeled the nice lady who sees people. Catherine knelt down to Emma's level. "This is beautiful. Can I keep it?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Daddy says you're going to make things better for everyone. Is that true?" "I'm going to try," Catherine said. "With your father's help." Emma looked up at Ryan. "You should say yes, Daddy. She needs you." Ryan let out a shaky breath. Then he extended his hand to Catherine. "I will try it. For 3 months. If it does not work out, I go back to being a janitor with no hard feelings." Catherine shook his hand. "Deal." 6 months later, Catherine stood in the newly renovated employee break room on the 40th floor. It looked different now. New furniture, a functioning coffee maker, windows that let in natural light. And on the wall, framed and prominent, hung Emma's drawing of the 3 figures. The room was full of people. Rita Alvarez, who had finally received her promotion to Director of Facilities. Gerald Brennan, who had become Catherine's closest ally in implementing changes. A dozen other employees who had been part of the transformation. And Ryan, wearing a suit that still looked uncomfortable on him, standing beside Catherine as they prepared to cut the ribbon on the new childcare center down the hall. "You ready?" Catherine asked him. "No," Ryan admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." They cut the ribbon together. Emma was the first child through the door, running toward the colorful space with a kind of joy that made every difficult board meeting worthwhile. After the ceremony, after the speeches and the photographs, Catherine and Ryan stood alone in the empty break room. The city stretched out beyond the windows, vast and indifferent. "Do you ever regret it?" Ryan asked, putting on that uniform, starting all of this. Catherine thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago. The empty penthouse, the corner office that had felt like a prison, the reflection in the mirror that had looked hollow. "No," she said, "I regret that it took me so long." "You are different now," Ryan observed. "Softer, but also stronger." "I learned that from you," Catherine said, "and from Emma, and from everyone else I had been ignoring." She paused. "I spent years trying not to become my father, trying to prove I was nothing like him. But I was so focused on being different that I forgot to ask if I was being good." "Are you good now?" Ryan asked. Catherine smiled. "I'm trying. Every day. And that is enough." 1 year after Catherine wore the janitor's uniform for the first time, Meridian Financial was recognized by 3 major publications as one of the best companies to work for in the Midwest. Employee turnover had dropped by 62%. Productivity had increased by 18%. And the company's reputation had improved so dramatically that recruiting top talent had become effortless. But the numbers were not what mattered to Catherine. What mattered was the way Rita Alvarez smiled when she talked about her team. What mattered was the childcare center that now served 43 families. What mattered was the equipment that worked and the supplies that were always stocked and the employees who no longer felt invisible. What mattered was Ryan Cole, who had transformed the role of employee advocate into something powerful and necessary, who had implemented a system where every complaint was heard and every concern was investigated, who had become the conscience of the company, the voice for people who had never been heard before. And what mattered was Emma, now 8 years old, who sometimes came to the office after school and drew pictures of buildings where everyone mattered, where the janitors and the executives worked together, where being good was just as important as being successful. Catherine kept all of Emma's drawings in her office. The newest one hung beside her desk, a gift for her birthday. It showed a woman standing in front of a tall building. The woman was wearing a janitor's uniform and a business suit at the same time, somehow both and neither. Underneath, in Emma's careful handwriting, were the words, "The lady who changed." Catherine looked at that drawing every morning when she arrived at work. And every morning, she remembered the question Emma had asked her that first night in the break room. "Can I show you my picture of my dad?" Not "can I show the CEO?" Not "can I show the lady in charge?" Just "can I show you?" As though Catherine was a person first. As though being seen was a gift that went both ways. On a cold evening in December, Catherine found herself back in the employee break room. Not because she had to be there, but because she wanted to be. Because this room, more than her corner office, felt like home. Ryan was there, preparing coffee for the night shift crew. He had never stopped making coffee, even after his promotion. So it kept him grounded, reminded him where he had started. "Working late?" he asked. "Just finishing some reports," Catherine said. "Thought I would grab a cup before heading home." Ryan poured 2 cups and handed her one. They sat together in comfortable silence, the same way they had during that first week. Except now the silence felt different. Not awkward or uncertain, but peaceful. "Emma wants to know if you are coming to her school play next week," Ryan said. "She is playing a tree in the winter pageant." "I would not miss it," Catherine said. "What kind of tree?" "An oak. She says it is important because oaks are strong and they protect other plants." Ryan smiled. "I think she learned that from you." "From me?" "You taught her that strong does not mean standing alone. It means creating space for others to grow." Catherine felt her throat tighten. "She is a remarkable child. You should be proud." "I am," Ryan said. "Every day." They finished their coffee in silence. Then Ryan stood, collecting their cups. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me. For seeing all of us." He paused. "For being brave enough to admit you were wrong and then actually changing." Catherine stood as well. "Thank you for giving me the chance. For trusting me when you had every reason not to." Ryan extended his hand. Catherine took it, but instead of shaking, they stood there for a moment, 2 people from completely different worlds who had found common ground in the space between power and humility. "Same time tomorrow?" Ryan asked. "Same time tomorrow," Catherine agreed. She watched him leave, then turned to look out the window. The city glittered below, full of invisible people doing invisible work that kept the whole machine running. She thought about the woman she had been a year ago, the one who had stood in an executive restroom, holding a janitor's uniform and wondering if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. That woman had been afraid, uncertain, hollow despite all her success. This woman was different, not perfect, not free from doubt or mistakes, but present, connected, committed to being good even when it was hard. Catherine pulled out her phone and looked at the background photo. Emma's drawing, the lady who changed. She smiled and headed toward the elevator. Not to the 42nd floor in her corner office, but down. Always down. To the loading dock where the night shift was beginning. To the people who had taught her that true strength came not from standing above, but from standing beside. The elevator doors closed, and Catherine descended into the heart of the building, into the invisible world that was invisible no more, carrying with her the most important lesson she had ever learned. That everyone deserves to be seen. That dignity is not earned through position, but through character. That the distance between the corner office and the loading dock is only as great as we allow it to be. And that sometimes the most powerful thing a person in power can do is kneel down, look someone in the eyes, and ask a simple question. Can I help? Not from obligation, not from guilt, but from genuine desire to make the world a little bit better, one small act of recognition at a time. Because that, in the end, is what changes everything. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.